Welcome to Rally Towel Sports. Let's call it Whacky Wednesday. Because
Let's go.
It is Todd with my boy Aaron. Aaron, how was your 4th of July? Let's hear about it.
I was pretty good, man. So we talked about the 4th of July movies. So we didn't do a ton, but we did Armageddon and The Patriot.
Perfect.
Which were pretty solid.
Perfect.
Forgot how silly Armageddon was, though.
Yeah, it's a little outlandish, but you know,
it
is
a
what
good
it is.
Popcorn flick, though. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially you get that movie on a soundbar, man. It's crispy.
75-inch TV, just chilling, have a drink.
Love it. Yeah, dude. I don't know if you saw last night, but we had Bobby and his lady Caroline and her sister and their friend over, and we played Flip Cup like we were 21 years old.
I love that.
Things got out of hand very quickly.
Oh man.
There were 2 coolers full of bevies.
Was that on a Tuesday or was that last night or was that Monday night?
Sunday?
Oh, Sunday. Okay.
Sunday. Yeah. So had a cooler full of bevies. Those coolers were down to less than, I believe we had about 90 total beverages, 85 total beverages, and there were 10 or 15 left when it was all said and done. And boy, Mary and I were in trouble on Monday. It was a rough day.
It's nice to have a Monday off. So I was lucky I had the bachelor party last weekend. So I had a short week leading in, long weekend this weekend, short weekend. Next week is going to bust my ass back to the 5-day. Not looking forward to it.
You've been riding the 4-day coattails.
Yeah. And now that I've been doing really well I'm in sales. So I've been doing really well at my job, and I've been sneaking in little things to my boss of like, hey, maybe I'm better at 4-day weeks. You know what I mean?
These 4-10s work a lot better than 5 8-hour shifts, man.
No, they're 4 8s, but like
no, I'm not working
to add time. And Corey in the chat just fucking quoting Armageddon. He knows what's going on. I love it. One of my favorites in that movie is they're like, we're strapped. I'm going to butcher the line, but they're like, we're strapped in a rocket ship beneath nuclear bombs, bidded on or won by the lowest bidder. And I'm like, and I loved it. It was great. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw Armageddon. It drags on a little bit, and there is one scene in that movie where it's Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler just like having an intimate moment in like the open field before Ben Affleck has to go save the world. And then Aerosmith comes on, and I'm like, who's trying to get fucked to their dad singing? Like, you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Yeah.
Off key there. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty good stuff though. And The Patriot, turns out I thought I'd never seen it. I confused it with Dances with Wolves forever. I don't know why.
Also,
with Kevin Costner movie, right?
Solid. Yeah.
So we started watching it, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this. So
and then
really
Mary's jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you?
I know. It was good. It was really good. So that was my 4th of July. We did a little. I took Mary golfing. She got her first par, and then so we had to play another 9 because she's got the itch. And then we did something on Sunday as we were walking over, and she's like, because we had Monday off, and she's like, I don't know, I think we can squeeze in a quick 9 Monday morning. And I was like, oh, you got the itch. You're done now.
It's over. She's just gonna your dead space of conversation is just gonna be filled with golf.
Yeah, we went.
Don't know what to do.
Last night. It was
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Don't know what to do. Let's go to the range. Let's hit a bucket.
It was great.
Oh man, you went from like, man, I can't wait to get married to like things are. You're stuck with me forever. Yeah, don't you worry about it.
Exactly.
Oh shit. Well, coming off a crazy 4th of July and a little bit of action before the 4th of July that we really didn't get to cover. I mean, we're still kind of up in the air on what's going on with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, right? I mean, we're in a circumstance where we've kind of left off with Kyrie pretty much demanding to be in Los Angeles, and then you get Kevin Durant basically just kind of throwing the bait out on Twitter, like, here I am, who wants me?
Right.
And kind of wiggling this way into like, well, I could be in a Heat uniform, or a Suns uniform, right? He kind of throws that out there. What do you think? What do you think the move is with Kevin Durant?
It's kind of tough. So like, there's a lot of destinations that I think make a lot of sense, but Kevin Durant strikes me as a kind of guy who, like, for instance, the Pelicans, I think would make a crap load of sense. I think they have some pieces that they can give back, whether that be Brandon Ingram, some picks, and then they'll still be able to retain, a solid core with Zion and McCollum. But Durant doesn't really strike me as a guy who's going to be happy in New Orleans. So like, there's a lot of the big market teams that really aren't in a need for necessarily a player like Durant. Ironically enough, the best situation for him is to stay. I saw, they signed TJ Warren. They obviously made the Royce O'Neal trade with the Jazz. Ben Simmons still there, for all intents and purposes, Kyrie as well, Seth Curry, Joe Harris. There's some guys on that team that if you can somehow figure this out, again, ironically enough, that's the best destination for Durant, is for them to kind of figure this out, talk it through. And for the Nets, it's their best situation too, because you basically mortgaged your whole future to make this Kyrie Durant thing work, where they're like, hey, you got to sign our guy DeAndre Jordan, and which didn't make any sense. And then therefore, they trade Jared Allen, got rid of a lot of good pieces, LeVert, Dinwiddie, what have you. And I really think that him staying in Brooklyn is the best move for both sides. The Gobert trade kind of screws things up a little bit, because they were able to get, and I know we're going to talk about it, so I don't want to really touch on it a lot here, but if Gobert is going to command 4 first-round picks, then Durant has to command, 6. And he's also on a 4-year deal.
Right.
So I don't really know where it's going to shake out. If I had to pick a destination for him right now, I think like I said, I think the Pelicans make a lot of sense. I think you can talk about maybe the Heat. But I think for the Nets, they're going to want to be heavily compensated back, because they need to make up for all the picks that they lost in acquiring Harden from Houston.
Right.
And then obviously they didn't really get a king's ransom sending him back out to Philly.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you keep popping New Orleans into this conversation, because we just saw New Orleans make a really significant commitment to Zion, right? You signed him to the Supermax extension, coming off of maybe some questionable stuff. Bobby Layman with the like. Bobby, what is up, my guy? Paul Huber in the chat. Been a while. Hubie's in the hizzle. My guy, what is going on? Paul, we're talking NBA, buddy. We're talking about Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Rudy Gobert being worth basically my second unborn child to the Timberwolves. We're getting into the thick of it, guys. But you see New Orleans give Zion the Supermax extension, and my gut reaction to it was like, holy shit, that's a big commitment. But then I have to remember that this dude averaged over 20 points and over 60% from the field goal percentage a couple of years ago. And was an elite in the NBA, right? That season that he had a couple of years ago, you're like, holy shit, this guy's the real deal. And, I always kind of fall back into look at all the weight he gained. And then literally 3 weeks after the season's over, this dude's grinding it out and he looks like a completely different human being. Right.
Looks like he spent 3 months in like a sweat lodge.
Right.
Just came out a different guy.
Yeah. It doesn't seem far-fetched for New Orleans to say, all right, well, we have the piece, right? Brandon Ingram to me is an easy move to make for New Orleans to send to Brooklyn, right? Because Brandon Ingram has shown some really significant upside in terms of his ability to score, and you're not really dealing with the superstar aspect of Brandon Ingram, right? You're dealing with a guy that's just basically a scorer and not really much else at this point in time in his career. So you package Brandon Ingram in, and with just a slew of picks, right? Because Gobert gets 4 first-round picks. Kevin Durant, what is he worth? Is he worth 6, 7, 8 first-round picks over a spread of 7 or 8 years?
Right. Well, here's the thing too, though. For the Gobert trade, obviously they got 4 first-round picks for him, but the Timberwolves didn't really send them back any player of significance. Now, obviously, there were guys that were in there to match contracts. I know Beasley, Beverly, they're good players, but they're not like if you send a Brandon Ingram back in a trade, to me, that's worth a first-round pick or 2. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What does that guy get on the open market for a trade? So I think you kind of have to account for that. The one that we didn't mention that I think would be interesting is team that just fell short last year. If you're the Celtics, do you maybe make a package around Jaylen Brown and pair Tatum, Durant, and Smart with, Time Lord, and of course they just got Brogdon, Gallinari, guys like that. I actually think the Celtics could be quiet players for Durant. The question is are the Nets going to want to trade Durant within their own division?
Sure. Yeah, I think that we are just at the forefront of this. And really the NBA in terms of trade talk has been pretty silent since the Rudy Gobert trade. We haven't had anything really significant happen on the trade side, some free agency signings, but I think it's a perfect segue into talking about Rudy Gobert and talking about that trade and what that means for Minnesota, right? So you're talking about Gobert, Cat, and Anthony Edwards on the floor for the Timberwolves, and how much better does that make them versus, kind of filling in with the role players like Malik Beasley and Patrick Beverly. Right. That's what I'm saying. You're replacing role players with Gobert, who has kind of solidified himself as kind of the big man of the NBA currently. Right. I mean, he's kind of like the last of a dying breed. So what do you think that does for Minnesota and their hunt to try to get further into the playoffs?
I'm going to do it as my best Brian Windhorst. Let me tell you. What? I'm just kidding. I'm going to be just straight up real with you, Todd. It is one of the worst trades I've ever seen in my life. Okay. I hate it. I don't understand what the Timberwolves are doing. Rudy Gobert is we all know this, 3-time defensive player of the year, absolutely elite defender, but this guy can't stay on the court in crunch time because he can't hit free throws. And you just gave up 4 first-round picks and some swaps for him. And if this works out, great. But what have we seen in the NBA over the last couple of years? You look at teams like the Nets or Houston making trades to bring in Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, or you take a look at the Nets when way back when they did the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trades, where it's you really don't know what your team's going to look like in 4, 5, 6 years. Though you're giving up unprotected, really valuable picks because your team can change just like that.
Right.
The Clippers are kind of up against it too when you have Kawhi and Paul George not really staying healthy and really don't have any incentive to stick around if you can't figure this out because they signed some shorter term deals. So I absolutely hate what the Timberwolves did. I love Anthony Edwards. I absolutely love him, but his prime window isn't going to be for 2 or 3 years. He's still trying to figure it out. He had a great playoffs. I think he showed so much this last year that, I want to invest in that core, but you basically just blew it up to go with Cat, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert. And I don't know. I don't know that the Twin Towers is going to work in Minnesota. You gave up a lot to do it. There's really no track record for this. They showed a glimmer and a glance of playoff success by winning a play-in game and then getting smoked in the first round by a Ja Morant-less Grizzlies. This does not make any sense to me. And really what this comes down to is the Timberwolves have new ownership. And they just fucked themselves, and they got excited, and they're like, "Make it happen." And I'll back off. I want to hear your opinion. I fucking hate it.
Okay, so let's get the chat real quick. So Paul's had a couple comments in here. First and foremost, Rob in the chat. What's up, guys? Big Dirty Harry. What's up, Rob? So Paul, kind of going back here. So Bobby, no, we have not talked about Baker yet. We're getting settled in here. We're exchanging formalities. We're driving together.
I'm ready.
So that's it. That was my goal. I want you to get all fired up. I want to get a little red in those cheeks, and then we can start talking about Baker. But Paul, kind of going back in the comments here, the only reason that New Orleans re-signed Zion is because he's making money at the door. I think there is some truth to that. I think Zion also has superstar potential that there's the unknown. I mean, we've seen him in real life, in real time, play exceptional basketball.
Yeah.
I think he has the ability to do that again.
You're also not a big market, though. What's your alternative?
Beignets.
Yeah. No, but really, like if you have a guy like Zion Williams and you can offer him more money than anybody else, which is gonna. But we see this all the time. People sign their second contract, and then next year he's gonna be like, "I want out." You basically don't really have a choice.
Right. So another question he posed, I think, is a good question. He asked if we think Golden State will win 2 more championships in the next 4 years. And then Rob kind of jumping in here, calling you a man of culture, which, if you guys know, I pretty much agree with Aaron on everything. And I agree with you, Rob. I think Aaron is one of the more refined members of Rally Towel Sports. I like to think of myself as kind of the threshold for being refined and cultured amongst us. But Aaron is a very, very close second, and that's not just struck.
We left the trash twins off tonight.
No, Paul, I think that's a good question. And here's the thing, and I think we saw it in the finals is experience can win you championships, right? We talked a lot about Golden State being outmatched in multiple parts of the game and still being bested by Golden State. And you've only seen, the biggest move being Gobert, but we've seen some other guys kind of re-ingest back into their former team. And then we still have a lot of open air. So it's hard to answer that question because there's still a lot of moves to be made in the NBA. Yeah. And I think as it currently sits right now, when you talk about Kyrie and Kevin Durant being on the Nets, yes, they have the ability to win 2 more championships in the next 4 years because Boston is still they're still a piece short, right? I still see them as a piece short. They'll go out and get Malcolm Brogdon, which helps them significantly. I think having him and Marcus Smart in the backcourt is a good duo. And then you throw Jaylen Brown and Tatum on the floor. You can even bring Brogdon off as the 6th man off the bench, which I don't think is a bad spot for him because if you'll remember, maybe not a great rookie class, but at one point in time, he was the rookie of the year.
It's just injury with him.
Yeah, and he's a career plus 35% three-point shooter. And I think that's a big piece of Boston's puzzle that they kind of missed getting through the NBA Finals is being able to fire on the perimeter at will.
I think the Gallinari move is big too. Personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of money, right? Gallinari is a big contract to ingest, but he is a proven perimeter shooter as well, and he's a guy that can kind of bang under the boards and grab you some rebounds and take some stress off of Time Lord, right? Because I think where you saw where he started struggling was when he had to be on the floor for those 8 to 10 minute stretches, and he starts getting tired and he was fatigued. He's coming off an injury, right? I think there's a lot to be said about being able to be conditioned to play in a game while injured, but I am interested to see Gallinari, Time Lord, and then Brogdon, what their impact is. But
well, with the with the Warriors too. I mean, listen, they have the pedigree. They're that team in the playoffs that you never want to face. They might not have more talent than the other roster, but they're going to be the more dangerous team because they've been there, they've done that, and I think you're going to see Klay Thompson take a step forward next year with a little bit more, repetition under his belt after being off for 2 years. But I also think you're going to see Draymond take a step back because we saw it in the playoffs and we saw it pretty consistently. The team that we're not talking about because, they fell out early and they had the Middleton injury is the Bucks. I think the Bucks line up right now against Golden State and they win in 5 with a healthy roster. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about they're basically a full calendar year removed from an NBA championship. Right. So it's not out of the conversation, right? You're not having Chris Middleton is not having a potential of 30 points a game, right?
And what if Durant goes to the Suns? We just don't know yet, is all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, like I said, there is so much that needs to happen still in free agency, and with kind of with all these trade requests that are going on, it's hard to answer that question. But I think where we currently stand, I think Golden State has the ability to win 2 of 4, and I think you could talk about a Boston or a Milwaukee or even a Miami Heat now being able to come in and scoop in a championship or 2 there. So I think that's a great question. And Bobby asked, how many more years do the Warriors have left to be on top? Um, it's honestly, again, it's kind of a loaded question because you're looking at Steph getting into double digits in his career. Draymond's touching double digits in his career. Jordan Poole's getting into the kind of the peak of his NBA career, and Klay Thompson's still kind of in the thick of that too.
And what if Wiseman clicks?
Right, and you know they lose GP2, which is a big part of the defense for them. I think that's one of the best stories of the NBA. Is Gary Payton Jr. You know, if you guys aren't familiar, goes in undrafted, hovers his way around the G League, has to go through, you know, playing international ball, cut, sign, finds his way on Golden State, wins a championship, cuts a 3-year deal with Portland, and now he's solidified himself basically $28 million over the next 3 years. I love it. I think it's those guys in the NBA that aren't the big names, but the meat and potato guys. That's the stuff that gets me excited. And seeing somebody being.
Go ahead. I'm just cutting you off.
No, I was just gonna say I just like seeing guys who, I mean, that just put everything on the floor, get rewarded for that. And I think GP2 is a good example of that.
I like to call him the mitten.
Because his dad was the glove.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Here's the thing. If GP2 can rock the old Gary Payton glove sneakers, the old Nikes, I think it's a match made in heaven.
I think what we're trying to say is bring back the Sonics.
Yeah, bring it back. Just bring it back. Rob asked, pretty sure almost all their guys are locked in for the next 2 years. That is correct. So they just re-signed Looney for a 2-year extension or for a 2-year deal as well. So they have brought back a big man in Looney, and then you're going to have a healthy Wiseman who kind of has all of the what ifs around him, right? Because his time in Memphis, he was a top 3 recruit coming out of high school, had a strong freshman year that had some injury involved there. He goes into Golden State, he shows a ton of upside, gets hurt. He's basically out a quarter of the way into the season.
Yeah, and he's never really gotten to play with that core. You know what I mean? Obviously, Klay gone, Steph gone, Draymond gone. So he was kind of and you know, he kind of he showed flashes, but he never really had that. You know, if Wiseman has to come in and be a guy who's a 10 and 10, great, fantastic. Give me some blocks, right. Give me some hustle. It's a big piece.
Yep, absolutely. I think that he has, similar to Jalen Duran going to the Pistons, I think Wiseman has a ton of upside. I think if Penny Hardaway did anything right and becoming the coach at Memphis is that he used all of his resources available to get guys like that to come there.
Yeah. And,
you know, those guys that are the big guys that are super athletic, that can jump out of the building. Those are the guys that make the NBA exciting, right? I think Wiseman gives me a lot of, DeAndre Jordan vibes in his style of play. He's out there to grab a ton of rebounds, and when he blocks a shot, he's blocking it into the second level, right? He's not just tipping it out of bounds. And I think that's a piece that we're kind of going away from in the NBA too, are those guys that just have these very emphatic shot blocking ability. And he's a guy that could do that. And I'm interested to see how he meshes in.
I don't see why there's any reason he can't become like the poor man's like Ayton for the Suns.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I see that as I get the DeAndre Jordan one, but I think he's a little bit, I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers, but I got to assume he's a better free throw shooter, which is a big deal as a big man. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know
I don't know
Jordan's like the worst. So
right. Yeah. Pretty bad. Yeah. Pretty terrible.
But yeah, not to spend too much time on the Warriors because I know we got a lot of chats popping tonight. We love it. Keep it
Thank
coming.
you so much. Thank you. So for those of you guys that are tuning in that don't always watch, Aaron and I don't get a lot of opportunity for it to just be he and I. We usually have somebody that kind of steers the ship. So this is our second time doing this together, and we're learning how to work off of each other.
No, this is just like speed, and this bus isn't going below 55 tonight.
Paul asked another good question. I think is a perfect segue here. He said the Lakers are a train wreck right now. How can they right the ship?
QB, great question. I think here's the thing, man. If they're somehow able to turn Westbrook into Kyrie, that's really good. I think. Listen, if there's anybody that can keep Kyrie in check a little bit, it's LeBron. And I think people forget too the fact that listen, in 2020, this team won a championship. And if you have LeBron, Anthony Davis, and maybe Kyrie as your quote unquote big three, you can do a lot worse than that. LeBron still has a crap load in the tank for more than he should for a guy his age.
He's got a lot of records to break still, right?
Exactly. I mean, I was just going to make that point. So he's still motivated to play. It's not just playoffs or bust for this guy right now. He wants to go out and win, the all-time scoring championship. Obviously, he still wants to get a couple more titles under his belt so he can contend with some of the all-time greats, which, again, we've hashed that out multiple times, but, he's at the worst number 2 all time. I still think, obviously the Lakers are in a little bit of a train wreck situation now because we have this recency bias of how this last year ended. But if Anthony Davis is healthy and LeBron James is equally healthy and they're able to turn Westbrook into a piece, whether that's Kyrie, whether that's, somebody else. The other thing I've seen too is, do you trade Westbrook and Davis for Kyrie and Durant? And I do.
Yeah, so I think you've already seen, for me, you've seen a small window of that be coming into existence with them going out and getting Thomas Bryant from Washington, right? So yeah. I think that you grab a big man like that, and no way, I want to preface by saying this, and no way am I comparing him to Anthony Davis, right? What I'm saying is you can dispose of a player like Anthony Davis to bring in a better scorer that is healthier, right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Anthony Davis's career has these huge peaks and these crazy low valleys because of all of the injuries that he's had in his time in the NBA. I mean, you watch him put together these MVP seasons, and that 2020 run in the finals, he played at an incredibly elite level. I don't know how much you remember of that, but that dude was dropping 30 and 15 a night, and it was playing 40 minutes a game as a 6'11" center, right? And then you watch him in this season, and he's just so unhealthy, and he just seems so sluggish, and it feels like two completely different players, right? Yeah. And I think that's really been it's been his MO his entire time in the NBA. And you see a team like LA go out and get a guy like Thomas Bryant who can play the big man and can give you 30 minutes a night, right? That's the important part, is that he could give you those minutes, and then you can go out and trade it. Say you trade an AD for Kyrie and somebody else, right? I don't know if you could package them together. If you could give AD, I guess, AD and Kyrie, or AD and Russ for Kyrie and Durant. I mean, if Brooklyn wants to make that trade,
sure.
Make the trade, right? I don't think there's much more of a level straight up trade right now than those two being swapped for each other, right?
Yeah, both teams kind of in awkward situations too.
Right. Yeah. So it feels very possible, right? I think it's within the realm of possibility to see a move like that made it, and you're seeing LA kind of cover their ass by grabbing a big man and make sure that LeBron is not having to spend a lot of time under the rim, and he's leading those fast breaks and getting back on defense is what he's done so well. So I think that's the blockbuster trade that we're kind of all waiting for, right? And what's going to happen with Russ and AD, because and now it's being thrown around even more frequently.
Right. And the crazy thing too is, and this is as a Cavs fan, this was a LeBron staple, making that Russ move last year. If they just stood pat, went in with, Kuzma, Davis, James, and all that. Look at all the players that were available that they could have had they just waited. But of course, LeBron James is a what have you done for me lately kind of guy, and I totally understand it, because he's chasing all-time greats. He's not just chasing the other 29 teams. Right. So he'd be a terrible player GM, because and we've seen it, because hey, bring Russell in. This guy's averaging triple doubles a year. He's going to fit in great. But if an actual GM had stood up to him and said, that doesn't make sense for our team long term, they would be in such a better situation right now to actually be able to swing some trades for some of these guys. It could have been DeAndre Ayton. It could have been Durant, Kyrie. It could be whatever. But I just think you've hamstrung yourself because you have this just unsalvageable contract with Russell Westbrook.
Sure. And shit, I mean, even a guy like Zach LaVine, right? You could go out and give a guy like that kind of money to come to LA and take a ton of pressure off LeBron.
Well, they wouldn't have had the cap space. They could have done it as a sign and trade, but they certainly weren't going to have the cap space to just grab people off the open market, but they would have at least had players that could have moved. A guy like Caruso would have value. They decided they didn't want to re-sign him. Could have had value in trades. Kuzma, Harrell, they swung too early and they popped up,
Right. Yeah. So Paul had a question for us. Want to see what you think. He asked, how many minutes per game should LeBron play next year?
As many as he wants to.
Yeah, 40 plus, right?
If he wants to, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's – and I think it goes right back to it. I don't think he showed any sign that he slowed down. In fact, I think that –
he really is. Yeah, sleeps in a cryo chamber, and he's like the Tom Brady of basketball where it's just time stands still, and I can't believe he's still doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's this is year 18 for him, right? So
yeah,
we're 3 years removed from Bronny being able to play in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken.
I have that bet with my fiance that he will play until his son is in the NBA.
Yeah, at this point, because you look at his career average, and even the last 5 years of his average, he is on pace to break the scoring record within the next 3 years. Right. So at that point, he's got the scoring title. He wants he's said very clearly he wants at least 2 more championships. He's going for championships. He came to LA to continue that run, right? That's the whole purpose of him going to LA.
There is a little off the field stuff that's involved there.
Sure.
So we want to be
you don't get to be
in Space Jam. He produced Hustle, like the Adam Sandler movie. Like he wanted to be close to Hollywood. He's a billionaire now. That's why he's in LA.
Right. But I think that's really the thing that he's chasing is that opportunity for father-son to suit up together and dribble drive together and do that to that's the bow on his career, right?
Yeah, the crazy thing is even if he falls off a little bit athletically, he can still be like a 15, 8, and 8 guy as like an effective point forward if he really wanted to be.
Right.
His legs would have to completely crumble from underneath his body unless he really, really cared about his points per game average, which I could see that being something he cares about. There's a lot of guys who want to retire. Kobe comes to the front of my mind because he scored 61 in his last game. Like Kobe could have played another year if he really wanted to. Like there was no reason that he couldn't, other than you don't want to be the star that fades fast. You don't want to be the sun that crumbles in on themselves or the star that crumbles in on themselves, if you will. But point being, LeBron's game actually translates really, really well to being like the old guy at the gym who's like, his passing and basketball IQ isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
So how long does he want to play?
Right. Yeah. And infinity, right? You could say infinity for the time being, because again, he just doesn't look like he's ever going to slow down. Paul asked us a question, or he made a statement saying that if he really wanted championships, he would take less money.
Jordan never did. People don't take less money. That's
right.
From an outside perspective, where if somebody said, "Hey, Aaron, do you want $1 million?" I would follow them into like a dark cave. But like when money is no object to you, I don't think there's also an ego side of the money part. Like your name of top salaries is going to be listed next to the other top salaries. And do you want to be next to Steph Curry, or do you want to be next to like Miles Turner? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there is an ego side to the money too.
Sure. And Paul came in here and said Tom Brady didn't. And I understand your perspective of it, but football and basketball are 2 completely different sports. And, you can't compare the NFL and the NBA. You just can't. It's 2 completely different dynamics of bringing a team together to win a championship. And what Tom Brady was able to do in New England is on a completely different pinnacle than what we're trying to say LeBron's doing. It's apples and oranges to me. It's hard to put those together and try to make those make sense in the same universe, because it's 2 different worlds.
Right. Well, in the NFL too, you have to spread the money over 50 plus people as opposed to 12 to 15 people in the NBA, where the NBA is a league where you need a top star to succeed. The NFL, we've seen it in the NBA, it'd be the Pistons, there are those rare instances where it's the sum of all parts that ends up winning the championship, but that's the exception, not the rule. And in the NFL, you need a star quarterback. So yeah, Tom Brady is obviously out there not chasing rings, but that's his ultimate goal.
Right.
So is he willing to take a little bit less money so he can spread the wealth around? Sure. But really all they're doing, and we've said this countless times on this podcast, in the NFL, the salary cap doesn't exist. In the NBA, it really fucking exists.
Yeah. You're like you've said, you're rewarded for maintaining players and you're penalized for going over the salary cap pretty significantly. So
it's really hard to make cap space in the NBA. Even when you are below the luxury tax, you're typically above like the soft cap, if you will, and you have mid-level exception money to throw around, but very rarely is a team that has two superstars ever going to have cap room to sign an open market free agent.
Right. All right. Well, shifting gears from talking about LeBron and talking about some of the old or the current greats, let's talk about Chet. I think Chet Holmgren is worth bringing up on this podcast tonight, and here's why. Number one, KD tweeted at Chet, said, "See you, kid. Love what you do on the court. Nice sneakers." Rocking KD's first game in the Summer League. Chet Holmgren also broke the Summer League block record last night with 6 blocks, and he didn't even realize he did it.
Of course not.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't even think about that, but this dude put on an absolute clinic in his we'll call it the premiere in the NBA and the Summer League. I believe his stat line was like 24, 7, and 6, something along those lines. 7 for 9 from the floor. Very active as a ball handler, kind of running the show for OKC. If you watch the highlights, he was the floor general for them when he was on the floor, and that's including them having Josh Giddey out there, who was kind of their ace in the hole last year when they kind of had to fall back on when SGA went down for a little bit. And I think that he's a guy that was a part of the social media madness in high school, right? You look at a 7'1" guy with a 7'7" wingspan shooting from 30 feet away. That draws some attention, right? And you're like, oh shit, this guy's a real deal. He goes to Gonzaga and plays exceptional for Gonzaga in his freshman year. Didn't pan out the way that they wanted it to and March Madness, but then you see him get picked second, slide a little bit, because there was a point in time going into this draft that he was the consensus number 1 for most of the college basketball season. And then you saw a quick shift where Paolo might go first or Jabari Smith might go first. And then there was a battle for those top 3 spots. And then, you see Chet kind of slide into this number 2 spot in OKC, and basically everybody in OKC is jerking each other off when they can draft Chet Holmgren. And I think that he's a guy that with some patience. So when I mean patience, I think that basketball fans need to be patient, because you got to remember he's 7'1", but he's barely 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And some acclimation, because he's playing at the fastest level that you can play a professional sport or basketball at the NBA. I think that he has the ability to have some huge upside.
Yeah. I mean, he's a pile of bones. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't look like an athlete. And I saw a lot of things on Twitter after the game of, him taking one-legged step backs, and they're like side by side with like Dirk. And yeah, that's probably your, Dirk with a Dirk who can protect the rim, because Dirk was never really a outstanding defender. We can see the fact that, Chet is a guard that just happens to be in the body of a center. And I also saw a bunch of stuff where it's like, well, what's going to happen when this guy has to go up against Embiid or Jokic? And I'm like, well, nobody stops those guys. I don't think it's going to really be that big of a deal. Again, as a Cavs fan, I have Jared Allen, who's one of the best Embiid defenders there is. He's still giving up 25 a night to him. It's right. That's a good night defensively against a guy like that. So I'm not too worried about it. The one thing I will say though, with Chet, and he's doing it again right now. So I was going to say it's 1 Summer League game, but really it's 2. It's Summer League. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Remember Kevin Knox? You remember?
Remember Kevin Knox.
Because there's a lot of guys who show up in the Summer League and don't necessarily translate the same to the NBA game. Let's wait and see. I think if you're an OKC fan, there's no problem, being excited about it. He overnight went from favorite, or from like third or fourth to rookie of the year to favorite. I think that's completely fine. I think that's just. All I'm saying is let's like you said, let's have some patience. Let's wait a little bit here before we decide Chet is the next unicorn, although he fits the mold.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Kevin Knox is the perfect example, because he was the ninth overall pick, he goes in and as a Kentucky fan, I remember very clearly watching him play in the summer league and being like, "Holy shit, this is a completely different game."
Who's this guy?
Even his time in Kentucky, he didn't play the way that he played that first summer league, and now you're watching him basically scrape to get a year or two deal, and I believe he just signed a 2-year deal with the Pistons, if I'm not mistaken, to try to reamp his career, because he fell off the map, right? And I do agree with you to a certain extent. It's one summer league game, but it was his premiere. He fulfilled he exceeded the expectations, because there's been a lot of like, this guy's, it's all social media hype. He got beat up. He got beat up a lot when they played in tough games in Gonzaga. He's too skinny. He's going to get beat. He's going to get destroyed by these, the Jokic's and the Embiids and the Giannis's of the NBA. Well, sure. That's welcome to the NBA.
Yeah, right. Everyone.
Yeah. Like you said, even Jared Allen on his best night is giving up 25 to Embiid.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Kobe scored 30 on everybody, and the best defenders guarded Kobe. So yeah, it's going to happen. But I think it's a good way to keep some excitement in the NBA, right? Because we're in this like weird lull time where baseball really sucks right now. Nobody's following it. I mean, literally nobody is following it. And the summer league gives you a little bit of time to follow some basketball until we get into training camp for football, right?
Yeah. And a little taster, just to keep going.
Yeah. You get just enough. You can watch it, and it's not bad basketball, right? It's almost like going to the YMCA and watching the 10 best guys go out and play against each other, right? That's what summer league is. It's guys that are looking for their first chance, or maybe this is their last chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have a lot of summer league is basically you have one or two guys on a team or even in the game that are like, hey, this is why I tuned in. And then the rest is just kind of, G League and fringe guys, which again, no problem with that. Maybe you're on your last chance. You're trying to, prove yourself in this league. And I think that's why summer league is valuable. If I'm Sam Presti and I'm the Oklahoma City Thunder after tonight, because, I just, checked the Twitter before we hopped on here. He's doing it again. I'm shutting him down. I'm shutting him down immediately. I got all I needed. I can see that he can play against talent. I don't need him to go out there and keep proving himself.
Right.
So, good for Chet. And the only loser here right now are Magic fans, because here's the thing. I like Paolo a lot, but we said this, Chet is without a doubt the highest ceiling, but he's also got a pretty low floor. But if I have the number 1 overall pick, I want to swing for the fences. I want the guy who's going to be the generational talent. And if I miss, I miss, but I'm probably going to be right back in the same situation in 2 or 3 years anyway. Right. So let me get that guy who's going to get me out of this, not the guy who's going to make me the Atlanta Hawks of the 2000s. You know what I mean?
Right. And if you're OKC, a team that still has, I believe, 13 first-round picks over the next 4 years.
That was the perfect destination for him, because even if that fails, you're in a great spot.
Yeah, because guess what? You either have the assets to go out and get the accessories necessary to make you a better team, or say SGA completely plummets and some of these other first round picks that they've had over the last 2 years that complement Chet don't pan out. You have the time to continue to draft and continue to rewind and then press play again. OKC has that ability, right?
I love that we're like a summer league game and a half, and I'm like, let's pump the brakes, and you're like, and you can surround Chet with these.
No, I'm just saying if it works out, right? Like if it works out exactly, and right now Chet is the accessory to SGA, because SGA is the one that's the proven scorer.
So full circle this whole conversation. I know it's not going to happen. Durant to OKC. Like, they have the assets to do it. You can make that trade without even giving up Chet, or probably not SGA and probably not Giddey and guys like that. But I don't know, man. There's something about how there's something about Durant where we all agree he's one of the all-time players, of all time. He's probably a top 10 guy, but he didn't do it the right way. He took the easy way out. He went to Golden State and he won. He went to Brooklyn and it never really panned out. He needs another championship under his belt to have that legitimacy to it. What did LeBron do? He went back to Cleveland and he won a championship, not necessarily the hard way because he waited for the Cavs to finally have really good players, but still there was this 50-year championship drought that Cleveland had hanging over their head, and LeBron was the guy to do it. He was the local guy. There was a really, really good feel-good story about that. If Durant goes back to Oklahoma City and wins a championship, oh my God, that would be incredible. That would be news story for decades. And I actually think that could be pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it's the swan song of the 2020s, right? If that happens, you have that destination within the decade where you're like, this is the moment where I watched all this go down. We talked about it. It came to fruition. You're right. That's kind of the pinnacle. And that's right now it feels very.
It's not going to happen. It's just interesting. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it would be great. But
and I'll steal this from, I think it was NBA Countdown. I was watching the free agency show. If Kevin Durant retires today, whose jersey is he going into the Hall of Fame with?
Ooh. Is it Golden State?
It's probably has to be, but that feels wrong.
Right.
Because again, he won 2 titles, but they were I don't know. They were gimme titles.
Also, wouldn't it be dope if he went in a Supersonics jersey?
That was, somebody made that point too, because he's the last, everybody in Seattle still loves him.
Right.
It's that's how they're still following the NBA as their Durant guys. And I get that, but I just, I don't know. There's something to me about Durant returning to OKC that I think would be such a cool fucking story. And they're probably the only team in the NBA that if they want to, they can just throw their dick on the table and be like, we beat your offer, if they really want to.
Right. We'll see. Like I said, there's a lot that needs to kind of unfurl in the NBA. We've touched on the highlights, and Aaron, you brought up Cleveland, and I think it's the perfect segue for really the biggest news
I'm always
of the day. The biggest news of the day: Baker Mayfield.
It's over.
Is no longer on the Cleveland Browns. He is now a Carolina Panther. It is worth a 5th round pick.
Yeah, well, conditional. Could be a 4th.
Yeah, conditional. It could be a 4th. You're right.
I'm assuming it's going to be a 4th. Here's the thing, man. And I get why we talk about it a lot, because we talk about Deshaun a lot, and therefore we have to talk about Baker a lot. I'm so glad that it's finally coming to a close. It's over. But also, what did I say from the minute that I started coming on with you guys, which I'm very thankful for you guys having me. Hey, Aaron, what about Baker coming back to Cleveland? No, not happening. I would cut people off in the middle of their sentence. No, it's not going to happen. It won't happen.
Yep.
Never going to happen. I was right. And I like saying I was right, because there was no fucking chance that Baker Mayfield was going to take another snap for the Cleveland Browns. And for the Panthers, this is such a low risk move. But, and I want to bring this up, and I should have it pulled up, but I'll have it here in 1 second. Warren Sharp, which if you're not following, and if you're a gambler and you're not following on Twitter, highly recommend following Sharp Football. The Panthers have traded away their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th to assemble a quarterback room of Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Matt Corral. It's not like they didn't give up a lot for this quarterback room. They're basically they have 3 Band-Aids is what it seems like. It's just weird to me that the Panthers traded up in this year's draft to get Corral, which to me, I was like, all right, they're out of the Baker sweepstakes. It's just they made their move. We heard all of this on draft night. They were close to a trade. They can't agree on compensation. The craziest thing is, to make this trade happen, Baker Mayfield turned $3.5 million of his salary into incentives, where he can earn it back, but he's not guaranteed it now.
Right.
So I'm curious, what do you think? Obviously, I can completely dive into the weeds on the Cleveland aspect of it. So before I take the Sandra Bullock wheel here on speed, what are your initial thoughts about it?
So I think that you've said it the right way. Me personally, I'm just really sick of talking about Baker Mayfield. I'm sick of having this conversation about Cleveland and Baker and then it's Baker and Cleveland and all of this bullshit. And I think for Carolina, it's the perfect stopgap, right? You have a guy for 1 year who can come in and be very serviceable, will complement EJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey very well. He'll do it, and even even Robbie Anderson. He becomes a guy that could be a target again. And then you still have your third round pick or fourth round pick. Was it third or fourth when they drafted Corral?
I think they drafted him in the third, but they traded
round,
like 2 fourths or something to move up.
Right.
And get him.
So you move up to get Matt Corral, who for some people who were talking about quarterbacks going into this draft class was the first or the second or the third most NFL ready quarterback in this draft. And then you also still have Sam Darnold, who can be a serviceable quarterback if things get really, really hairy. So I think if you're Carolina, you've already basically put this is their sixth quarterback that they're going to put on the field in 4 years. Why not put a guy out that's won, right? Baker's proven that he can win. He doesn't have Cleveland's defense, right? That's the big difference is that he
or
doesn't
the offensive line.
Right. So that's where I was going to get to. So he doesn't have the. It's okay. It's okay. We're getting through it together.
I'm hot tonight. I'm feeling good.
You are. You're saucy. So he doesn't have Myles Garrett on the other side of the ball, who's kind of platooning a charge, right, and keeping him off the field. And then he also doesn't have the best offensive line in the NFL for multiple years protecting him. So What is Baker going to do? Baker's going to Brett Favre it all over Charlotte. He's going to be running all over the field, gunning, throwing the ball from east to west instead of north to south because that's what Baker does. Mm-hmm. And Browns fans all over the place are going to go, oh, thank God we don't have to deal with that. And he's going to come up again because guess what? Week 1, who do the fucking Panthers play?
I know.
They play the Browns.
I know. And here's exactly how that's going to go. They're going to win that game because Deshaun's going to be suspended. It's going to be Brissett against Baker. It's going to be home in Carolina. The Browns are 0 for the fucking century and starting the season 1-0. They've won one fucking game since they've come back since 1999. And I'm pretty sure it was Jeff Garcia to start this team 1-0. Otherwise, they start 0-1 every year. Even the year they just made the playoffs last year. They had the close game last year against the Chiefs. They lose to the Titans when they were, after they get OBJ. Like, it just fucking happens. The Browns lose week 1. It happens every year. You pencil it in. I don't know if Vegas has caught up to it yet, but they fucking should. But from the long-term approach of it, listen, man, Baker Mayfield had 8 good games, and it was the second half of the season prior, and that's what kind of propelled them into the playoffs, where he showed himself to be a top 10 quarterback. He is not that guy. He's just not that guy. And again, for the Panthers, great. If Baker balls out, now you have a decision to make. Are you going to pay him the long-term contract, or are you going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt Corral? I don't necessarily think that Baker's going to come in right away and just be handed the starting role. You still have Sam Darnold there. The interesting thing is, have we ever seen quarterbacks that have gone 1-2 on the same team? I don't think that we ever have. I'd have to fact check that. But it's 2020 and we don't do that anymore. So it's the first time it's ever happened. And listen, if I'm a Panthers fan, I get it. I'm fine. There's no reason to not be excited. You're going to get your ass kicked by Tom Brady twice a year. You're going to go nowhere. They're not going to make the playoffs. It is what it is. And also, if you're a fantasy football plan, stay the fuck away from DJ Moore because Baker likes to spread the ball around. The interesting thing is Hollywood Brown went and signed with Carolina in this offseason, who has been, I'm sorry, Hollywood Higgins, not Hollywood Brown from the Ravens. Hollywood Higgins, who has been his constant in Cleveland throughout his whole career, is down there in Carolina. Not that that's going to do much. The guy's a C receiver at best, but he's got good hands and he's an okay route runner. it'll be interesting. But the thing is in Cleveland, what we had was, listen, I got a great offensive line. I have 2 amazing running backs. I have Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. I have, guys on the defensive side who can make some noise. I don't think they have that in Carolina. You're going to get 4 games out of Christian McCaffrey before he's done for the year. You're going to have DJ Moore going, 3 for 29 in a game, getting 4 targets, and just be listless out there. I've seen it. I've seen this play happen. And don't get me wrong. Let me take a step back here real quick. Thank you, Baker. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you've done for Cleveland. You brought us back to the playoffs. You won us a playoff game. You're the first overall pick, and you came in here and helped change the culture with Jarvis Landry. But you're just not that guy.
Man, what a bow to put on that. I think it's. Here's the thing is, and if you're looking at it purely from a fantasy football perspective, right? Carolina just became the Jets. You just stay away from anybody that's in a Panthers uniform, because you're not going to put a ton of points on the board. Baker's not a guy that runs the score up that often, right? He's not a guy that's going to throw you 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. Now, here's the thing, and if Christian McCaffrey doesn't put some meat back on his bones, because we all saw that picture where he looked like he had been pulling water out of his body for 2 weeks getting ready for a fitness model competition. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to be more durable. That's to me, that's the key of this puzzle working out for Baker. Because for me, I'll give you my perspective of this. This is a year for Baker to make sure that he could find a job somewhere else next year for at least 2 more years.
Yeah.
And then for 2 more years after that. And then for 2 more years after that, then he can hang up the helmet. He's got a decade of service in. He's pretty much good for the rest of his life because he'll be eligible for the retirement benefits. He calls it a career. And then you talk about him with your friends when you're, at the fucking group barbecue that all your buddies go to, a decade down the road after Baker retires, and we're like, you remember with Baker? Remember when he was on the Browns and they won a playoff game? And then Cleveland fans can be like, yeah, I do. And then they're gonna give the brief synopsis that you gave, and then you just move on. That's Baker Mayfield to me in a nutshell.
This is a prelude to the who the fuck it is, because this is going to be an absolute pull. But you know whose career he's going to have? Mark Bulger. He's going to stay in the league forever, and he's going to have some nice moments, but he's never the guy. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. He's better than Andy Dalton. He's better than Chase Daniels. Like, here's the thing. There's no reason the guy can't be in the league for forever. You know what I mean? Until the wheels fall off. I actually think the most interesting move that could have been made and was kind of rumored to be made was the Buccaneers. Because if you put Baker behind Tom Brady for a little bit, let him just say the Buccaneers basically give him the deal of, listen, man, this is your show when he's gone, but until he's gone, it's not your deal. That would have been the best situation for him. He would have learned from an all-time great. And I actually think Baker is a quarterback that has no problem soaking up the knowledge. Maybe he was a little bit humbled from this experience and maybe take a couple chips off of his shoulder and say, you know what, maybe I'm not all that. And he certainly doesn't have the chips on his shoulder to say, I deserve to play over Tom Brady. And I think that would have been a very humbling experience for him and maybe set himself up for the highest ceiling of his potential. But I think that we've at this point kind of seen it. And here's the thing. If he doesn't ball out for Carolina, nobody's going to come calling next year. He's not going to be in a situation where they're like, well, Baker's the last piece. Even like where you saw like the Vikings be like, we're going to give Kirk Cousins all this money because we have this amazing roster that's just void of a quarterback. There's not even going to be that type of situation. So yeah, I love Baker. I appreciate him. I love everything he did for Cleveland. He really did make some of the greatest times I've ever seen watching Browns games. But it's also like, I keep seeing this on Twitter where they're like, Browns fans aren't grateful for the fact that, he took them out of the shit. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, we want to be just as good as everybody else. I don't want to settle for mediocrity.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's proof in the pudding that if you look at a quarterback like Joe Burrow, for example, that gets a team again with a full roster of assistants, but gets a team to a Super Bowl from a losing season, right? And Baker didn't do that in his time in Cleveland. So I think that's a very fair thing to say, is like, it's not Browns fans giving up on Baker, or Baker, not being grateful, or fans not being grateful for what he did in Cleveland. He didn't fulfill his objective. When you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, you are saying that this is the guy that is the future of your franchise that's going to get you to the Super Bowl. You never draft somebody first overall without the idea that they're going to get you to the promised land, because you've sacrificed a lot by being really, really shitty. I'm looking at you, Jacksonville, drafted Trevor Lawrence, and you go after a guy that you think that's going to get you there. And he didn't do that in Cleveland. So guess what? If you're, let's talk, you're in sales, right? And you say you go out and you poach a guy from, another company that's doing inside sales, and he comes in and he fucking lays an egg all over, sucks big old cojones when he gets to your company. You're not going to just keep paying him. You're going to fire him because he's not fulfilling his end of the deal.
Right.
That's exactly what this is. This is, you aren't doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing as a number 1 overall pick. We give you this money. We put a lot of faith in you. Your return on this investment doesn't meet the company objectives. Therefore, you move on. Now, does this impact Cleveland in the short term? Yeah, for probably 8 weeks, right? Because that's where I stand right now with Deshaun Watson. Is you have 8 weeks of playing Jacoby Brissett, who is a serviceable backup. He probably gets you 2 or 3 wins within those 8 weeks. But then you have the rest of the full second half of the season to win 6 or 7 more games with a quarterback that has proven himself to play at an elite level and has just been on really dog shit teams. So you take the gamble, right?
Right. And you go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, outside of all of the things that are going on with Deshaun Watson, let's exclude all of the stuff that's going on and try to think about this. You went out and got a quarterback that has proven that he can win in bad situations, right? Deshaun did that. He won on a team that was managed and coached poorly because Bill O'Brien was the GM and the head coach.
Just the worst.
He had, some help on the defensive side of the ball with J.J. Watt, but he had very little assistance on the offensive side of the ball outside of DeAndre Hopkins. And what they did in Houston together was very significant. It got DeAndre Hopkins a lot of money, and in return, it also got Deshaun Watson a lot of money. So, yes, this is business. People get this, the emotions. It's the same thing in baseball too. People get really emotional about players. They get really invested in these people, and then when they're hurt by the player, they hate the player. But then when the team separates themselves from the player, they hate the team because they're like, oh, this guy's been so consistent for us all along. Why are you getting rid of him? Well, you're not fulfilling your end of the deal. So we got to move on from you and got to try to win. Because at the end of the day, an NFL franchise or any professional sports franchise, the objective is to win and make the playoffs and then win a Super Bowl and then continue to do so year over year over year. And he didn't do that.
Agreed.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think as a Browns fan, the most frustrating part is just revisionist history. And I know it's very in vogue to shit on the Browns right now because of what they did with Deshaun. And I'm not saying that's not just. There's no problem with that. But what has happened since then is all of the same people that are saying, well, the Browns are trash, Baker got a bad rap, were the same people that were saying Baker is trash. And now that the Browns brought in a guy like Deshaun, who, again, holy shit, a lot of stuff going on there, but let's just talk football for a second. Baker wasn't good. He had 8 games in a regular season where he showed himself to be pretty decent. He also, he also had that moment in his rookie year where, he broke the rookie touchdown record. I argued that he should have been the rookie of the year over Saquon Barkley because of what a quarterback means to a team rather than a running back, especially because the Browns were at least in the playoff hunt towards the end of the year where Saquon Barkley was just running over dudes wild because Giants weren't really playing for anything. Great fantasy guy to have, though. Awesome. But to me, a quarterback, it just means more to the team. And I thought Baker probably should have been the rookie of the year that year. But without that point standing, everyone was had no problem shitting all over Baker last year, even though he was injured. And now those same people are saying, well, he was injured last year. He's getting a bad rap. And it's like, well, where the fuck were you before this happened? Not to fucking mention, Todd, who was another team that was in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes? The Carolina fucking Panthers.
Right.
and now they have Baker Mayfield. So now it's a feel-good fucking story, even though they just lost a bid for the same piece of shit that everyone agrees is a piece of shit. Like, that's just, I as a Browns fan, that's just the part that's like not fair, because listen, Deshaun Watson, I am not saying is a good person. We understand it from a football perspective. This is the NFL. We know what this business is about. Every single team has somebody on their roster where you're like, that guy's kind of a piece of shit. This one's more of a piece of shit, and that's fine. We can tier it however you want. But to act like the Panthers weren't involved in this Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and now it's like a feel-good fucking story because they get Baker Mayfield as a consolation prize, is just fucking wild to me. And I'm sorry I said fuck a lot, but I'm feeling a lot of emotions.
No, I think it's very fair. That's a great perspective on that. Is, again, you just go back to there are a lot of people that speak their opinion on sports, and I'm here to listen to anybody and whatever they have to say. And I love to have a conversation about anything that's sports related. But if you're going to make blanket statements that Browns fans have made about Baker over the last, let's call it 5 weeks, 6 weeks now, and then be upset when he is moved on from, and then have kind of these contradicting, opinions of what Cleveland is doing to Baker and what Baker did for Cleveland, you're going to get people like you who are upset about these things, that there's no consistency in how, this circumstance is being conveyed for Cleveland and Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of this, and I see, trust me, as a Reds fan, I see it very, very often, especially this season. You watched the CEO of the fucking organization basically threaten every single fan and say that they better watch their back because he's going to move the team in a heartbeat, right? We heard that happened in opening day. And all these people were sell the team. Well, now you're in a circumstance as a Reds fan where tonight is the third night that Joey Votto's sitting. These are also the same people that, by the way, at the beginning of the year before he got injured, when he started off slow, that were like, why is Joey Votto still on the roster? And then today they're like, oh, he's sitting for a third day in a row. What are the Reds doing? Right. You're always going to have that noise, right? It's the consistent white noise of sports. It's people that use social media or use the platform, whatever is available, to share their opinion, to prove that they know something about sports. And you have to filter through that and understand that at the end of the day, everything that is related to sports is also related to business. The decisions that are made off the field are business decisions. They are not personal decisions. And if they are personal decisions that organizations make, they fail because of that. You don't do things out of spite. You don't do things out of hatred or dislike for somebody. You do things because it's the best case scenario for your team to get to the objective, which is to win a championship in whatever sport that you're in. And that's where I think we end this conversation, because anything else is fucking white noise. And I'm done talking about it. I think that it's stupid. Jordan says I sound like his dad. Guess what? I'm a dad now. Things have
Jordan.
You turn into a dad. You get really loud and obnoxious about people who are loud and obnoxious.
Right. But before we move on, I do just want to make just one small little point. So, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit before. As a Browns fan, it is not lost on me the fact that Baker Mayfield came in here and gave me some of the best football that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I have no ill will towards the person Baker Mayfield. I have no ill will towards the way that this all, I completely understand his opinion of, I got to get the fuck out of here. I feel slighted. And I completely understand that. All the points we just made, though, are not forgotten. Like you just said, this is a business. And in this business, there's one goal, and it's to win a championship. And I have to do that against 31 other teams. I don't believe Baker Mayfield was the quarterback that was ever going to get the Browns to the Super Bowl. And if he does it elsewhere, I might be a little bitter. I was about to say I'm fine with it. I'd probably be a little bitter. I'm going to be honest with myself here. But I do just want to take a second to say thank you very much, Six. We appreciate everything that you did for the city of Cleveland. You're a very good guy. And thank you for making football relevant again in Cleveland.
Perfect. So, staying in Cleveland.
Damn,
I sent you a little linky poo earlier in the day in the group chat.
Oh, yeah.
About a potential trade for Kareem Hunt to New Orleans with kind of this potential suspension looming for Alvin Kamara down in New Orleans and that being a potential landing spot for Kareem Hunt. And I thought it was a good perspective that you had. So I wanted you to share that on here. And then I have a couple of additional questions for you on that as well.
Yeah. So basically just to kind of, we have a nice group chat going with the boys and it's always lit. But really basically you had sent the link of, hey, Kareem Hunt, the Saints trade. And I was basically like, nah, don't want it. Here's the thing. Yep. If it's for like a first or a second round pick for a running back, you have to take that. And I might be a little bit different, but the going price for a running back is like a third, fourth, or fifth round pick. And I'd rather just keep the talent on the field. So let's start there. So you have a two-headed monster in the backfield with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. The reason that Nick Chubb is so effective is because not only because he's, in my opinion, the best pure running back in the NFL, maybe not the best power back, maybe not the best speed, maybe not the best receiving back, but just pure through the tackles, pound for pound, best running back in the league, is because you have these awesome situations when they're both healthy. So here's what the Browns do. You start the game with Nick Chubb just pounding the ball. Great. War of attrition. You bring Nick Chubb in situations for third down, for receiving, and on the goal line, which for fantasy owners, I understand that you hate it because Nick Chubb doesn't get the touchdowns. But from a pure football perspective, it makes a shitload of sense. Nick Chubb is the paying the money to, and you want to make sure that your asset is as protected as possible. What happens in the second half of the game is Nick Chubb ends up starting the third quarter. He's getting in his groove, and then bam, here comes Kareem Hunt, fresh as fuck, just running between the tackles, and your defense is starting to play on their heels. And then next thing you know, it's the fourth quarter, and then you unleash Nick Chubb in the final quarter, which in the fourth quarter, what are you trying to do? Protect a lead or hold the ball, control the clock? You have Nick Chubb last year averaging 10 yards a carry in the fourth quarter because you have this fresh attack. Now for the Browns, Dearness Johnson last year, who is still on the roster, showed great ability as a running back.
That was going to be one of my questions is if you're going to...
You draft Ford out of Cincinnati. You can the Browns with the Hunt thing. But the thing is with Hunt, he's a Cleveland native, and he has stated multiple times that he wants to finish his career here. I believe that the Browns could actually get some team-friendly deals. Hunt and Chubb are great complements to each other. They're good buddies. And I actually think they understand the fact that, hey, when you eat, I eat, and we eat longer. The thing with the NFL isn't necessarily how much money can I bleed out of this contract? How many contracts can I get? And they complement each other in that regard.
So do you think that Dearness Johnson doesn't complement Nick Chubb as well as Kareem Hunt does?
I am telling you, I will gladly trade a fourth-round pick to the Saints for Dearness Johnson.
Okay.
Which I don't think would be a bad trade for the Saints.
No. That was kind of where I was going is, Kareem Hunt's the biggest name, right? He's the biggest name out of that backfield to move because Cleveland's already put their stake in the grass for Nick Chubb. You sign him to a very team-friendly deal that's also very incentive-based for Nick Chubb. And then you go out and draft TJ Ford out of UC, who is, an Alabama transfer to UC, and TJ Ford, who proved at the collegiate level that he's able to run between the tackles pretty effectively and also has some pretty soft hands. But here's the thing is that I think Dearness Johnson has proven in the times that he's been able to get on the field and get touches, he has the ability to be RB1 for a team that needs a guy to get on the field and get you 25 carries, right? He fits the same size mold. He's basically, you have, X-Men Nick Chubb, who's built like unlike any other creature. And then you have Kareem Hunt, who fits kind of like the middle running back road. And then you have Dearness Johnson, who sits around the same height as Kareem Hunt, but is a little bit meatier, and his ability to take some tackles between the lines is a little bit stronger.
So what I will tell you is Kareem Hunt is much more of an Alvin Kamara type running back. And what I mean, and I agree, Alvin Kamara is a better running back. But there was a time where Kareem Hunt won the rushing title. Like, there's
remember those years in Kansas City?
Yeah. I truly believe that the Browns have 2 top 12 running backs on their roster. And I also believe that they have 3 RB1s on their roster if you break it across 32 teams. Now, Dearness Johnson was a restricted free agent re-signing. Nobody else made an offer on him. The Browns would have matched it. Or it's not even that they would have gotten like a second or a third round comp out of it. So nobody was going to make that signing. And then there's obviously the forward draft pick, and you get him in like the 5th or 6th round. So, there's really not a lot of risk there. You get a guy who can come in and potentially play. Now that seems like a lot, not to mention Felton from UCLA last year, he's really more of a receiver type. Obviously he lines up as a running back, but we're talking about 5 running backs for the Cleveland Browns. But that whole game plan is Chubb Hunt. And I'm curious to ask you this because I know my opinion of Nick Chubb, but as a Bengals fan and somebody who has to go against him 2 times a year, what's your opinion of Nick Chubb?
I think he's a freak.
I fucking love him, dude. He's exactly what you want out of a football player. He goes 70 yards, breaking 3 tackles, and then he goes, "Here, ref, here's the football. I'm going to go back and sit down now. I love football." Here's my perspective of Nick Chubb as somebody who watches it. Exclude me from being a fan of a team in the AFC North that has to see him twice in a season. He is the guy that you make as a character in Madden to be your running back, right? That's how I see him. He's tall. He's very strong. He has a huge frame, and he runs like an absolute gazelle. And the thing about him, and I think it's him and Derrick Henry both kind of have this new running back look, I'll call it, where you see that guy line up in pads and you're like, oh shit, that guy's not a running back. He's an edge rusher. And then he touches the ball 30 times a game. Yeah. And I think if you're Cleveland, you did exactly what you needed to do, right? You locked in the guy that's your move. But I just think that. But that's the thing is he doesn't touch it 30 times a game because what the Browns could do is beat him into the fucking ground like Derrick Henry, and eventually that other wheel is going to fall off. But when you have a guy like Hunt, Chubb touches the ball 18 times a game, but they're so effective. You don't need him to run the ball 25 times. And you're increasing the shelf life out of a player that is an A+ running back. And we know this. Running backs, dime a dozen. You can get guys in the 5th round. They can come and be all pros. I love what because Kareem Hunt is not commanding a large salary, but the running back position is still very important, although there's just a larger pool to pull from.
Right. Yeah, I think that when you look at that back, I saw that trade and I immediately thought, there's no way Aaron's for this, but I gotta get this thing on air because I wanted to see you kind of dissect that, because the way that trade read out to me was like, yeah, you could trade Kareem Hunt, you could get maybe a 3rd to 4th round pick. Is he worth that to Cleveland?
A 2nd round pick, and I'm talking.
Right. So because you have to remember that they still have Dearness Johnson that's in the hopper waiting to another guy that can touch the ball 20 times a game and be very, very effective. It doesn't have bad hands either. So
here's the thing, I think that they don't compare very well. So when Hunt went down with injury last year, it wasn't like Dearness, went anywhere. There was the time when Chubb went down and Dearness had to go and be the number 1, but it wasn't the same complement. It wasn't the same offense when you had Chubb and Dearness as when you had Chubb and Hunt. So I'm much more willing to trade Dearness for a lower draft capital than I am to trade Kareem Hunt and ruin the identity of this offense.
Which I still think is I'm honestly more shocked that there hasn't been more teams knocking on Dearness Johnson's door saying that we could get you in here and we could get you into a starting role and get you a little bit more money. Because every time I've watched him in that RB1 role, he plays exceptionally well. Now, again, he's behind a very, very good offensive line, so that helps a lot. But he's also a guy that he's a good tackle breaker. He's not a guy that goes down easy.
Yeah. No, a good team that I think would be a great match for someone like Dearness would be like the Chargers. You have Austin Eckler, right? But he's not a 3-down back. Give me Dearness Johnson and Austin Eckler, and hey, that's a pretty good fucking tandem there. Not to mention that's a pretty good team as well. That doesn't necessarily have the obviously Austin Eckler is great, but we know what he is. He's more of a gadget guy. You're not going to hand the ball off to him, 25 times a game. You're going to hand the ball off to him 12 times a game, but he's also going to get 10 targets.
Right. Yeah, he fits into the run and gun spread 6.0 of the 21st century of football, right?
And that was off the top of my head. That's a great fit. San Diego, fuck. Los Angeles fans, where you at?
No, I thought that was I saw it come up multiple times in the last week, and I had to share that one with you.
And here's the thing. Your job as a GM is to take the phone call. And Hunt's on an expiring deal, but he's also in the local media, and anytime he's asked, makes a point to say, as a Cleveland native, this is where I want to be. And that means something to us, and I also don't think he's, obviously he has a little bit of a checkered past as well. That's why we're even able to sign him. He's not going to command the same type of deal as, your McCaffreys or your Kamaras or your Dalvin Cooks or guys like that. I think he's, somehow humbled by the experience and seems completely satisfied with the role of being the number 2 behind an absolute fucking cyborg.
Yeah. Just a pure unit.
Yeah. The greatest is they'll mic up. Obviously you don't mic up Nick Chubb because that's just a waste of electricity, but you have Hunt mic'd up on the sideline. And he's gassing up Chubb, who's just yeah. And he's just giving it to him the whole time. It's just such a yin yang between the two of them in all aspects. They're the perfect pairing.
All right. Well, chat, we're about an hour and a half into this thing. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. Aaron, do you have anything else that you want to talk about tonight before we close the curtain?
We've touched on a lot. Obviously the Durant stuff, the Gobert stuff, Baker, Chet. There's been a lot, and it's been great. And obviously we're going to be on tomorrow as well. So everyone tune into that. So I don't want to give everybody everything, but
that's fair.
I'm pretty happy with it. This has been fun, man. It's rare that it's rare that we get to jump on here together, and it's been high energy. Oh, it's I've been pretty juiced up this whole time, man. I'm having a good time.
So here's the thing: is that just as Aaron has discussed that Kareem is always gassing up Nick Chubb, I feel that I play a very similar role in our group chat. I mean, I'm gassing this dude up in the group chat 24/7 because here's the thing: is that we
agree on so much.
Yeah, we're fairly eye to eye on most things sports, and when you get into the mix with people who have strong opinions, like Corey and I, for example, who don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, to have somebody in the chat that can compliment and fill in there, and I could just silently agree.
Corey, big Jazz fan, and before the Rudy Gobert trade, we were running through scenarios, and the Minnesota thing was brought up, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna get this, we're gonna get that, we're gonna get Karl Anthony Towns back," and I'm like, "You're gonna be giving up picks if you somehow get Karl Anthony Towns." No, and you're like, "Nope, I agree with Aaron. I agree." Yeah, that's. I told Corey this. We were random roommates in college on purpose just for me to bring him down a little bit. That's my role in life, is to just check his ego at the door and be like, bro, you're a fucking idiot.
I mean, also to be fair, to put a sweet bow on this, is he said all of that, and then he also said, now it's time to bring he said
KD.
Yeah, first he said 8, which I was like, all right. I mean, now you have some room for Ayton somewhat.
Ayton makes sense, at least.
But now you can make a move for KD. And Aaron and I both are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do that. He's like, I'm just trying to speak it into existence. You guys are ruining my hopes and dreams. But
hey, man, take note. You're going to be in the tank for 4 years.
Well, chat, thank you so much for all your interaction tonight. We had 9 likes. We had 43 comments. Really appreciate y'all stopping by. Stopping tomorrow around the same time for Aaron, Bobby, and hopefully Corey. We'll see. He's feeling a little under the weather today, so we're hoping he can bounce back and get back on here and give you that Corey James energy that you all love so much.
I'll be back on. I'll be bringing the energy.
Aaron's juiced. I think you could argue that the juice is officially loose.
Ooh.
I mean, it's getting out of hand. I got a little worked up myself there because you were giving me the juicy Lucy vibe. So thank you for that. But
thanks for steering the ship tonight, man. Todd, you did a great job.
Thank you so much. I'm still navigating the host role. Bobby's always kind of been my, hey, I'm going to put this thing on a tee for you, and you just need to hit it over the fence.
Yeah,
and I'm learning and I'm adapting, and I appreciate getting on here with Aaron and just talking sports for a little while and it being a conversation and not being so forced. So,
and I'm glad we didn't agree on everything the whole night. That it doesn't make for good sports talk. It's like,
right,
I agree. I also agree.
Sounds good. Let's move on. Oh, you think that too? Let's keep going.
I also think that.
Well, chat, thank y'all so much for stopping in. Make sure you stop in tomorrow for more Rally Towel Sports. Again, I am Todd. With me was Aaron. Y'all have a good night.